Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel on the Best of Fantasy. I have something very special here today. I am with three good friends and fellow booktubers, and we are going to be discussing John Gwynne's Malice. This is a book that I recently read myself. Yep, everybody's got their copy there. Patrick has his in the background. So Alan and I just read this book recently. Patrick and Abby are veterans of this series. So we actually have a really fun thing planned. The four of us are going to be reading each of the 4 books of Malice over these next 4 months, or next 3 months, because we've already read Malice. So we're going to read the rest of the Faithful and the Fallen, rather, for the next 3 months. And each of us is going to host one of our discussions. So I am hosting Malice. And then who's doing our next one? I think Abby or Alan.
Alan.
Okay, so Alan is going to be hosting book 2, and then I believe Abby is going to be hosting book 3, and Patrick is going to be hosting the 4th installment and final volume of The Faithful and the Fallen. So one discussion a month over the next 3 months after we discuss Malice today. And we are going to keep the first portion of our discussion spoiler free. So if you haven't read Malice yet, no worries. You can listen to us talk for a bit, and we will give a warning when we begin to discuss the spoilers. And we are not going to be having any spoilers at all for the next 3 books in the series, because, well, Alan and I haven't read them yet. So you guys don't spoil them for us. So, but yeah, so no spoilers for the rest of the series, but there will be spoilers for Malice later in the video. We will give a warning. So let me just introduce my colleagues, my friends here. I will begin with Patrick. Patrick Leo is a big fan. In fact, this is kind of in a way, a late birthday present for Patrick, because this is, I think, his all-time favorite fantasy series. I'll let him correct me if I'm wrong, but so it's so great to have.
I love it so much.
Yeah, isn't it? It's a really fun series. So I'll let you, of course, you're going to be talking about why you love it in a bit. And then, of course, there's Alan from the Library of Alexandria. And Alan is, like me, a bit of a newbie to this series, but he has some great thoughts as well on it, as always. And it's one of my favorite things to sit down and discuss stuff with Alan, especially when we disagree about something. That's even more fun. So,
which happens all the time.
Yeah.
I just have bad opinions, apparently. So
yeah, well, you know, Alan, you make every conversation you're in just so much more fun. So thank you for being here.
okay.
And we have Abby Salter, who's just, I'm so happy to be discussing this series with you. I know how much you love it. And I've been just admiring your channel so much for a long time. And so I'm really happy to get a chance to discuss this with you.
You.
Yeah. So I believe that we will begin with just saying where we are in the series and why we love it, or, you know, how much we love it, where we think of this book / series in the canon of fantasy. So Patrick, since I believe you are, I think, the expert on this series, I'm going to let you go first.
Well, for me, I have done a video on my top favorite series, and this is at the top. It's together with series like Malice and Book of the Fallen and The Realm of the Elderlings by Robin Hobb. But I think this one somehow has a very special place in my heart, because the characters really lives, in my opinion. I think of them as a real person now. And I've talked about it with John Gwynne several times now. And we talk about the characters like they're real. I loved it. I loved it so much. It's one of my favorite series, probably at the top right now.
Wow, amazing. Okay, and Abby, how about you?
So I got Malice in the charity shop many years ago, and it sat on my shelf unread for ages until the shelf space, and it was the host for July, and I was like, right, okay, finally I'm going to read this series and see if I should keep going. So I picked up Malice and just loved it straight away. And as Patrick said, it's the characters. The characters are just so real. It feels as though they could exist and they could be your friends, and you love them and you hate them, and they just like live and breathe off the page. So yeah, I just, after finishing the first book, I dived straight into the rest of the series. Pretty much like binged it all because I was just so enraptured by the whole thing.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, that's quite an endorsement for sure. So Alan, how about you? You just began your Faithful and the Fallen journey. What are your thoughts so far?
I mean, I really liked it. Like I joined Shelf Space slightly too late to jump on the Malice read. I joined like in the middle of July, and it was just too late for me to start reading it. So since then, Abby mostly has been trying to get me to read, Abby and my friend Leslie as well. But I just like stuff about Northerners, like that, where it's cold all the time, and they all have beards. For some reason, like that's not like, I love military fantasy, but that really just doesn't usually appeal to me. So I was gonna read it. Like any picture you can look at and you'd be like, that's probably a Viking. Like that's just not really my favorite thing. And so I was gonna read it, but it just was never like super high on my priority list, because I'm like, there's no way. Like it's just gonna be like bearded men fighting, which is fine.
Hey.
Wait, Alan, what have you got against? What's that?
I was like, I kept telling Alan like repeatedly, Alan, you will like this series, and he's like, but it's Vikings. And I'm like, but you will love it.
Nothing wrong with bearded fighting, but it tends to be like,
what's wrong with beards anyway, Alan?
I mean,
yeah, someone is offended here.
It tends to be more loosely, like less focused military. Like they fight, like look at the way they fight in Malice. They fight like individual combat type thing, as opposed to a larger army, which is what I prefer when I'm reading military history. But I read it, and what I love that Gwynne does is, you guys are right about the characters. First of all, I'm in it for like the war and the war stuff in here and the political stuff. I love that stuff just already. And the characters, you think that they're very archetypal in some ways. And then just when you've been fooled into like, oh, well, these are just the standard archetype, they're not really. They're much more human than the kind of like stiff, more cardboard archetypes that we see in some like classic fantasy type thing. And they're classic for a reason, right? Because they were that was kind of the progenitors. And then you just like just the example for Corbin, like I was like, oh, it's a farm kid. Like, I don't care. Like, kid, get over it. And then gradually I'm like, no, you leave him alone. Get him, Corbin, get him. They all just endeared themselves to me over time, despite being something that I thought I had seen before. And I really like the way he did that. Plus the fact there's so much action, and I'm just like, you gotta let me breathe, Gwen. Like, I've gotta like, just give me a second to catch my breath. It was so good. I really, really enjoyed it. Yeah.
Excellent. So I'm just going to say briefly that, Alan, we're going to discuss how there are no Vikings actually in this, we are going to talk about how this is a Celtic inspired story. I know that the Gwynne has some Viking stuff as well, definitely. But to me, and this is, by the way, one of the things that I actually loved about Malice was just how grounded this story is in Celtic mythology and in the old stuff like the Mabinogion and the Irish tales, the invasion myths and the stuff like the Ulster cycle. And I mean, I just love that stuff. And I love fantasy that is grounded in that stuff. So that's one of the reasons I enjoyed this. I agree with you guys about the action as well. I would say to fantasy fans who really want a deep intellectual read, don't look for it here. It is more action. It is more fast-paced. It is more entertaining. So I definitely wouldn't want to oversell it in that respect. It is just a really fun read for me, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I ended up really feeling invested in the characters as well. So obviously Gwynne is doing something right there, because all four of us felt like these characters worked really well for us. So yeah, absolutely fun read. I'm so happy that I read Malice, and it's really because of people like Patrick and Mike over at Mike's Book Reviews, who have really been, you know, I think doing justice to this series by talking about it. And so that's really great. And I'm thankful for that. But yeah, I'm looking forward to the rest of The Faithful and the Fallen for sure. So
it gets better. It gets better and better.
that's what I hear. All the fans tell me every book gets better. Is that, you agree, Abby?
Malice is definitely the weakest in the series, I'd say. So if you absolutely
definitely
loved Malice, then you're in for a wild ride with the rest of them.
And Philip, that's one of the reasons I like it, is because it has that kind of classic feel, but is not bogged down in any way by like dense prose, extensive description. I don't know what anyone looks like other than they all have beards and they're dark haired, except for one red-haired person. That's it. Don't know. I don't need to know. Like it reads so quickly, despite feeling, despite being a little slow in the beginning. It doesn't you're not staring like at, I don't know, every speck of dust on a tree leaf. You know, we don't get pages of description.
Yeah, the prose, we can talk about that for a bit, and I'd love to hear the rest of you. And Alan, you just alluded to it. It's very accessible. It's not fancy. It's not fancy prose. So that's one of the reasons for the pace, which it just, you know, this is boom, 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 with some really, I think, strongly orchestrated action sequences. And so it's pretty relentless in that sense. And I enjoyed that. I was, you know, it was a fun ride. But the prose is not fancy. You know, don't expect, Ursula Le Guin level prose here, or you know, Robin Hobb type prose, or Stephen Erickson type prose. But you know what? I think we all love having those kinds of reads sometimes. To change things up. You know, I'm doing my reread of the Malazan Book of the Fallen, and I'm just loving it. But sometimes I want something that goes a bit faster too. So you know,
exactly.
Yeah, I meant for me in that sense. So Patrick, were you going to say something?
No.
Oh, okay.
But you do make a good point though about the accessible prose, and John Gwynn's books have very short chapters. Their chapters are very short, and they make the pages just flew by.
I love the short chapters that you just feel as though you're reading the book, because you're constantly getting to a new point of view, and then you're like, oh, but I need to go back to that point of view. So I have to get through. But it takes too long to get through the chapters. I mean, I enjoyed all of the perspectives, but I know that some people find they prefer one perspective over another, but it never takes you too long to get to the next perspective because the chapters are so short.
Yeah. So it feels very modern in that sense, like modern fantasy. And in other respects, as I think a couple of you already have said, this is a series that feels to me very grounded, not only in the old myths and stuff, but in classical fantasy. Like, I'm pretty sure, Patrick, you would be able to confirm this, but I'm almost positive that John Gwynne read Tolkien, and I know for a fact that he read Lloyd Alexander. It feels like it's got a lot of the nods to the classical stuff with the archetypes or tropes or whatever you want to call them, but it also reads like a modern fantasy because of that pace. I think, so it's kind of a nice blend, really, in that sense. That's something I enjoyed because I'm a fan of the classical stuff too. So
I am too, but I personally don't enjoy dense prose because it just takes me too long to get through books that are dense. This is why a lot of the classics, like, I appreciate just classic literature in general. Like, I appreciate it, but it's not something I pick up to read in my spare time because it's like I don't want to work really when I'm reading fantasy a lot of times. So I like the fact that it is grounded in the classical kind of style, but doesn't read like a classic. So that's one of the reasons that I love.
Awesome. Anything else that we should say to our viewers who have not read Malice or anything in The Faithful and the Fallen yet, that we want to say in terms of why you should read this series? Any thoughts on that?
So if you find the beginning bit slow, just keep going. Like, the beginning bit, it is like a bit intimidating with an introduction to a lot of characters and the world, all very fast, and you don't have a character guide in the beginning of Malice, unlike the rest of the series. So, but once you get to that second half, it really picks up and it really gets going.
I felt the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah, that was one of my complaints is like, there are like 8 characters whose names start with B, and they're all very, you know, like, and like Valor, I have Valor, and it's got a character guide in it. Thank goodness. Thank you, John Gwynne. I could have used one of those in this one. But other than that, like the first half definitely feels like it's setting up to something. And the cool thing is that you know what it's setting up to. They tell you early in the book, like, oh, something's going to happen at this time. And you know that you're leading to that. And I'm just like, okay, let's get to it. Come on, go, go, go. And, you know, everyone's like heading that way and all that stuff. And so it never felt like it was going to stay slow. Like I always knew that, you know, it was going to kind of pick up once they got to the point that they talk about.
Yeah.
Yeah. Excellent. And I would just add for the non-spoiler stuff that I mentioned this briefly earlier, but I loved how grounded this is in the Celtic lore. And I loved that, you know, I'm just a fan of the sounds of the language myself too. I used to know Welsh pretty well at one time in my life, a million moons ago. And I just love
anyone that really speaks Welsh.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it was something I did when I was like 19. I ran off to Wales for a summer, and I learned Welsh. I went in an immersive language program. I had been learning on my own for like a year before that too. So I actually got into the advanced group and left Wales that summer almost fluent in the language. Unfortunately, there aren't a lot of Welsh speakers around here in the United States, so I have not had many opportunities. Yeah, yeah. So once in a while I'll go into Duolingo and try to keep it up, but you know, it's easier when you have somebody to talk to. But but I also just love the Mabinogion, like I said before, and I love how Gwyn's names to me have a lot of them have a very Welsh flavor to them. He uses the language directly, and some of the names like Cohen and others like Corbin, they just feel very Celtic. Some of them also, by the way, there's also some Irish Gaelic flavor in there as well. The language that the giants speak is actually Irish, I think. It's definitely a form of Gaelic. So there's a lot of just nice little touches in there that are very Celtic to me. And I also think that we need to talk about at some point how he introduces a more Roman feel in part of this world. And it's kind of a nice blend, really. So he's basing these cultures on past eras of European history, essentially, I think. So, but yeah, so Tenebrae, the place down here in the south, has a much more Roman vibe going there with characters who have kind of Roman or Latin sounding names, and they wear sandals, right? So obviously it's a warmer climate there. And I think, and Alan, you're going to love talking about this too. And I think we need some of your wisdom on this topic as well. But the fact that these people from Tenebrae devised this style of fighting, which is basically, isn't it? Am I wrong here? It's basically interlocking shields with the short swords.
Yeah, shield war, right?
Yeah, it's a phalanx,
yeah,
isn't it? It's a phalanx.
Yeah, it's in this it is a phalanx in here, which is modified because the Greeks used spears when they developed it, but the Romans by this, if this is based on Roman Britain, the Romans by this point had to modify it because the Romans were the best in history of stealing and improving, and that's everything the Romans did. They stole and they improved. So they stole the phalanx, and then in the Samnite Wars, which were fought in the freaking mountains, they had to modify it because the phalanx doesn't work in the mountains on uneven terrain because you cannot keep that tight formation. And without that, people just plunge into the ranks. So they created the maniple system, which is essentially the phalanx with joints. And it allows it to be much more flexible to kind of fill in those holes. And then that gave way, like in the Punic Wars somewhere, for the cohort system, which is they give each Roman individual like group more autonomy to kind of like form up as they because before that they're waiting for orders if something happens. Like, what do we do? What do we do? They're like, no, we'll just have these smaller like groups that are more autonomous, really. And but here it looks like in the Tenebral stuff that they are doing the phalanx, which weakness is uneven terrain and horsemen on the flanks. This is why the Romans always had their horsemen, or more often hired horsemen, like the Germans or Gallic. Like it was their the Gallic or Germans tended to form their horse, because the Romans weren't really horsemen, to cover the flank, because the guy on the far, because your shield is on your left, so the guy on the far right doesn't have an interlocking shield blocking him. So one of the weaknesses is that if you're going to try to move your shield like this way to cover, you open that hole there, and then you can plunge through.
So you don't want to be the dude on the far right.
Do not. That's why you have horsemen to kind of protect the flank. And we see that here with Nethair trying to modify the style of fighting. And that's the way it was when the Romans went over to the Brits. The Britons had war chariots, which was terrifying to the Romans, but they were mostly unorganized. But they had beachheads, so it was hard for the Romans to get to make headway, which is why Caesar was repelled, and it was 100 years later. Sorry.
But in the Gallic Wars, though, and correct me if I'm wrong, the phalanx proved very efficient in defeating the Celtic warriors, who, as you said before, they would just sort of run into it, individually without the organization. So that was a deciding factor, I think, right?
Yes, and we see that here in this book is the Romans, they beat them, they were outnumbered always. Caesar was constantly outnumbered, but the discipline of the Roman troops was the best, in the ancient world, bar none. The Romans did not break ever. So even though, you've got hordes of Gauls charging, they just crash against the Roman shield wall. Right. And they just hold position, exactly like we see over here in Tenebral, which was really freaking cool.
Yeah. Okay. Nice. Anything else non-spoilery, Abby or Patrick?
No. I'm curious. Before this book, have you guys ever read fantasy that utilized shield wall into its battle?
Yes, but I cannot remember what it is.
Because for me, this was the first time, and I was surprised because I didn't think that this could work in an epic fantasy. And when I asked John Gwynne about it, he said that Bernard Cornwell, Bernard Cornwell, the author behind Uhtred, Son of Uhtred, and Warlord Chronicles trilogy, is one of his favorite authors. And Bernard Cornwell is really good at battle scene. And one of the battles in that he's very excelled, it is a shield wall. And it was really cool for me to see an epic fantasy that has shield wall in the battle sequence. And it's also vivid, so vivid.
I think John Gwynne, I don't think I have read a shield wall before in a fantasy book, but I think the battle sequences are so well written in here. And it's so engaging as well.
Yeah, it's never boring,
Yeah, so in his personal life, he is a reenactor, I believe.
Right? Yeah.
So I feel like that he's got some really great knowledge as a result of his hobbies, and that it really helps to make the books feel more authentic particularly in those sections. So yeah, I really appreciate that. Alan, were you going to say something?
Well, yeah, if he's a reader of Cornwell, which is I haven't read the series that Petrick's read, but I've read the Sharp series where it's Napoleonic War battles. Like, Cornwell is near the top of just writing military scenes. Like, it's just so good, and that you can tell here. Like, it's very similar here in Malice.
Cool. I think then, unless anyone has something to add for the good of the order in terms of the non-spoilers, I think we're ready to head into the spoilers. So we need to give a wave or whatever. Be warned, we are now going to talk spoilers, everyone. So goodbye to everyone who hasn't read, unless you want to just hear the spoilers and you don't care. But
go read it. Go read it and come back. So good.
Yeah.
You all should go read it.
Yeah, that's even better.
and then come back and listen to the rest of our talk. So, all right, are we ready? So what do we want to start with in terms of spoilers, guys? I'll let somebody, any one of you three, jump in.
Go ahead.
There's arc. It's like, I love, like, one of my favorite villain tropes, one of my favorite types of villains are the ones who start out as good guys and then become bad guys. Like Nether is he's just so determined to, take his place as being important and leading his country and proving to his dad that he is competent, that he just doesn't see all the signs around him that is like, dude, you're the bad guy. And I just thought his arc was just so great. And Veritas standing by with him, just like as his loyal protector, which is an archetype that I really like, until it's like, oh no, you're the bad guy. Like, don't protect him anymore. Please stop. I just thought that was so well done. It was just really well done, I thought.
And when he kills his dad.
Oh yeah.
Oh God.
That scene, I was like,
no, Abby, that's fake news. That one king, he's lying. Nether did not kill his dad. He's just actually killed Aquilus. It's not true. It's not true.
So this also, I think we can talk for a while about Nether, but you mentioned Veritas as well. And I actually find his character a little bit more interesting in the sense that here you have this faithful follower, he's a character that I feel like he's somebody I admire. He seems like a good guy. He seems, not only is he loyal, but he has integrity. And, he also has this father thing going on here where he wants to please his father, who seems a bit distant. And there's the fact that his mother died while giving birth to him. And so there's kind of this kind of painful dynamic between him and his father. And so some of it is about trying to find a father figure that he can please. But he seems like a good guy, and yet he is serving somebody who's clearly, by the end of the book that Nether is going to be one of the main villains even. And
cool.
I think, anyway, I mean, you two, Patrick and Abby, know better, but I'm just guessing. So
tell us.
Don't tell us. Yeah. So it just seems like to me that he's a guy we're supposed to like, and we do, and he has these inklings that Nether is actually not what he thinks. It is so tough. And this is a real world thing too, by the way. It is so hard when you have a certain perception of something, of a person that you admire, a person that you follow. And it is so easy for us to delude ourselves when there are signs that this person isn't what you think. And we just kind of ignore those. Our capacity to delude ourselves is without limit, it feels like to me, because people will follow a leader they feel an emotional attachment to and just ignore the things that's the bad signs, right? So
it does make you want to like jump into the book and shake Veritas into
Come on, you stupid! Stop it!
We do see at the end when they're in the passageway or whatever, and they have to kill all those people, like they turn on them right at the end. Yeah. And Veritas is like, are we doing, like, is this the right thing to do?
Yeah.
But
he constantly questions himself, but his loyalty is deeper than that.
Mm-hmm. And the other thing is, where's he gonna go? Like his brother is chief guy at in his kingdom, and is, like you said, Philip, his dad, they have a difficult relationship. Right. And if he turns on Nether, like Veritas in this book is almost defined by his loyalty. Like from the beginning, Nether's like, you're the one that ran through the wall of fire, right, to stop the guy who he says he's one of the good angels. I bet that guy's one of like the devil angels. So I forget what the name is. Yeah. But yeah, so he's so defined by his loyalty, like it would kind of like break his identity to betray Nether. And so that's another reason that I love Veritas as well.
Yeah, so you were talking about Calidus, right? Who
Yeah,
at one point in the story unveils himself, and he's supposedly one of the, what is it, the Ben Elim? Those are the good angels, right?
Yeah.
He's not. He's one of the bad. I guarantee.
He's one of the bad angels, yeah. Yeah. So I think, I mean, again, we don't know because Alan and I are just guessing here, but
we're just predicting.
I see Abby smiling at us like, oh yeah.
I think like, we'll just stay silent over here.
Yeah. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for the next videos where Philip and I are like, so we predicted that wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally.
What do you guys think about Evnis? Evnis,
Interesting
right?
character.
I
Yeah.
feel like he's very cookie cutter. Like at the beginning, you get introduced to him, and you know that he's evil straight from the beginning.
Yeah.
But you also sort of, by the end of the book, you realize that yes, he's evil, but he's still like a pawn in other people's games. That he isn't evil. So I quite liked how it's not just him as the bad guy, that there's much more to the bad side.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think Evnis is pretty, I mean, he's pretty like, I liked Gwen's choice to start the book with Evnis. Let us know straight away that he's a bad guy, because it was so interesting seeing him involved, just seeing him not as a POV, just like in people's like, oh, and Corbin saw Evnis and his son. And I'm just like, oh, I know what that guy's plotting. Like, I really did that. But I also like felt really bad for him when they wouldn't let him go freaking take care of his wife.
Yeah.
So I get it a little bit.
There's an interesting thing here too with his character. His name closely resembles a character who appears in the Mabinogion, Evnisian. And this is, I don't know how much Gwyn based his character on that old character in the Mabinogion, but he is an interesting character. He's one of those characters who you can't quite categorize as completely evil or good. He causes a lot of problems. He's a real troublemaker, but he also ends up saving the day at one point too. So I have no idea where Gwyn is taking this character, but he's kind of in the Mabinogion, the Evnisian character is a real troublemaker and kind of a villain, but not entirely. So, and yet another way in which I enjoy his little nods to the old stuff. But it is the case that you have, I mean, how much do you think these guys are kind of archetypes, like these characters, like Corbin, for example? You mentioned before, Alan, he's the farm boy. He's the chosen one. It looks like right now, anyway, it feels like we're going with a chosen one kind of trope here. And I don't know exactly where it goes. We're not going to say because we're not spoiling the rest of the series. But at the same time, though, I like the little touches that Gwyn gave this character, Corbin. So what do you guys think about him?
I love Corbin. Corbin and Cywin, I love them both. And like, I think those were some of my favorite perspectives, reading those two growing up and like learning to fight, and like Simon with her knife throwing and defeating the bullies. And yeah, I really liked his perspective. And,
I like the dynamic too between them.
Like when he saves the Woven pup.
Storm, yeah. Oh, my heart.
So this is another I think great trope in fantasy. You see particularly with the wolf, you see the relationship in A Song of Ice and Fire, for example. You've got the dire wolf and Ghost and Jon Snow. And in Assassin's Apprentice, you have by Robin Hobb, you had Night Eyes with Fitz. And so I like the fact that, again, you have Gwyn doing this trope, putting his little spin on it. And it was very endearing to me as well. I was like, there are points where really maybe the hardest part of the book for me to read was when Corbin had to get rid of Storm.
Yeah, oh, that part.
So sad. And you have this boy and his dog kind of thing, but he has to, because he loves the dog, he needs to save it. He has to be mean to it and, throw rocks at it and tell it to go go away. So that I loved. I thought it was you know, it's not that it's something new here, but it's just well done, and I enjoyed it.
So there are like quite a few common fantasy tropes in Malice, but John Gwynne definitely spins them, and like with Nether and how Nether thinks he's the chosen one. So you have that trope, but then it shifts, and the prophecy as well, and like how that's all going to unfold. So he definitely takes something that's the norm and then like changes it up a bit, so it sort of throws you out of what you think's going to happen.
Yeah, I like that.
I think I'm the only one with a dissenting opinion on Corbin from the beginning. I tend not to like really young characters in fantasy. I don't really know why. I think I don't know. I just tend not to really like identify with the younger ones. So I didn't really like Corbin to start with because again, it's farm boy. Like it's pretty obvious. At least it's looking like it's obvious. Like, oh, he's the chosen one. Like, oh, he's gonna train. I don't really love coming of age stories either. You know what I mean? And he kept getting bullied, and I'm like, how many times is this kid like someone put this kid's name in the bully box? Because like why every scene is Rafe bullying him, even when it's not in Rafe's best interest. Like, Rafe, you're gonna lose your ability to carry a weapon, and you're still like, why are you doing this? But like you guys said, like Corbin is so real. He's not like, he doesn't whine about being the chosen one. He has like, he feels like a teenager. Like he's sad about his wolven you know, pet or companion. He fights with his sister because he doesn't want his sister to fight his battles, but he's not strong enough to do it yet. And you just feel for him. He's very like, he just kind of emanates this aura of like, you root for him. And that's not usually when I read books that have that character. It's not generally that. I'm generally just like, oh my gosh, like get over it, or something. Like just stop. Like you never feel like Corbin is dragging the party down. Like Corbin is not putting everybody at risk because he's a fool. He's just a kid. And Gwynne does things like, even with Storm, I'm fully expecting, okay, he's going to get to keep his dog. Like, that's just what happens. You get to keep your dog. Or like everything that was going to happen with Storm, I was like, it's going to go this way. And it didn't. It was kind of like, you know, shifted a different way. Like, I didn't know he was going to have to get rid of it. I thought it was going to, like, they were going to give in and be like, oh, well, it protected him. He gets to keep it. But the king, what's the king's name? Brennan? Is that his name?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's like, sorry, it's got to go.
Nope.
Like,
Nope.
sorry. And you're like, dude, are you kidding? Like, do you see what the Storm just saved people? No, it's got to go. Sorry, it attacked him. Like, he was going to kill somebody. And they're like, sorry, it's got to go. And so that, like, when I'm frustrated at like what's happening, I'm like, good for you, Gwynne. Like, you made me care more than what I thought was going to happen. You know what I mean? So by the end, I'm on Corbin's side 100%. I love Corbin now.
So Patrick, I have a question. I wasn't clear on who's older. Is it Corbin or Cohen? Because I'm going to say Cohen, guys. So you can say Cywin, no problem. I'm giving it the Welsh pronunciation. Which one is older? I wasn't clear on that.
Corbin is the younger brother, I think.
Okay, that's what I thought, but I wasn't 100% sure. That makes more sense because in the beginning, as Alan was saying, I think it's Cohen who is protecting Corbin.
Yeah, because he's kind of like the big sister, right? She wants to protect him because, well, he kept on being bullied by Rafe.
Yeah. And it's interesting, the dynamic between them as Corbin kind of comes into his own and he has the training with Gar. And we have to talk about Gar too.
Oh, I love him so much. I love him so much.
Great character. But as Corbin becomes more proficient with the sword, the roles kind of reverse between him and his sister. He begins to be the teacher in some respects, at least. And she begins to see him a little bit more in a more mature light. And it's interesting. I never became more mature than my older sister, but there was a certain point where I started not thinking of her as this kind of older rival / protector. And I became more, I guess, you know, as I got bigger than her and all that, which, you know, I was really happy when I finally was bigger than my older sister. But it was, the relationship changed at that point, you know? So when I was a little kid, I was like, I can't wait till I get bigger than her so I can beat her up instead of getting.
Well, I guess John Gwynne has children, doesn't he? So maybe he's taking some of their interactions off of his own children.
Well, what I really like about when Corbin becomes kind of like the teacher is that you could so easily just have now Cywin's character arc is, oh, I'm resentful because I used to be, I used to be the competent one, and that's where that would normally go. But you see a little bit of that, like she's disappointed that she doesn't get to be, the kind of the protector, the hero of the story anymore. But she's never mad at Corbin for it. Like she's not ticked off. She doesn't really resent him. She's just kind of sad that he's gone past her role of protecting him. And so I really like that. It's just these subtle differences of where these things could normally and often do go.
Yeah. And I like the gender stuff in there a little bit. Nothing heavy theme-wise, but I do like the fact that Cohen is a young woman who has her own mind, and that she wants to fight as well. And there's some, moments there when I feel like she's kind of, why can't I be in this? Because I'm female. I mean, what's up with that? And so I liked her character, and I like what he was doing with her.
I really like her character.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Same with like the other female characters, like Brina as well. The healer, like she's got so much character. She's got
so much.
The crow.
What do you mean, Alan?
Why?
I want to eat the crow so bad. I hate that crow.
Oh my God.
I hate the crow.
No.
You have to understand, Alan has a phobia when it comes to crows. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's crows and hobbits.
I don't like hobbits. I normally I like Coltane of the Crow clan, but I do not like the crow in this one. It screams all the time.
Okay, maybe your opinions will change once you've read a few more books.
Yeah. True.
Yeah, I'm in the pro craft camp. I love that crow.
We need to protect that crow.
I liked that. What's her name? What's the lady's name? Brina.
Brina.
Is that it?
Brina.
I knew. I don't know why I didn't. Like I feel like I should have known that she was a wizard, whatever they're called.
Witch.
I did like at the end where her and what is the other guy's name?
Oh, Heb? Is it Heb?
Heb?
Is he almost sounds like a druid or something to me. He's the council,
right?
Oh, yeah, where the two of them bust out the
I think it's Heb. I think it's Heb.
I really liked that because I feel like I should have seen that coming, and then I didn't. I'm like, oh, get them! They're the wizards. Here we go.
Wait, do they love each other? Are they almost like a quarreling couple that they've never actually gotten married though?
I hope so.
You'll see.
Before we get into Gar, which I know is like everyone's favorite, can we talk about the other two POV characters, Camlin and Castell?
Yeah.
My opening thoughts. I didn't understand really the Castell POV. I think it's to set up for the POV of his bodyguard in Valor, because on the back of Valor it says that, what's his name?
Macon.
Yeah.
Macon.
Macwin?
So yeah, I think that was the point. I didn't really understand it when we were reading it. It just seemed very similar to both Nethair and Veridus. But I liked the Camlin storyline. The bandit who is like, kind of like, okay, what are we doing? Like, I was all about like being free and not being oppressed by the king, like being a bandit. But wait, you're saying we're not really Robin Hood? We're Robin Hood under the employ of the Sheriff of Nottingham? Like, nah, I'm not about that life. And so I really like that Camlin, like they let him in and that he's kind of a good guy now. I really enjoy that. I don't understand, and I've been told to just wait and see. I don't understand why Camlin didn't rat Evnis out. Like Camlin knows that Evnis was the one paying, or the one like informing on them. So I don't know why he didn't, when he got to wherever it is, Dunn's the kingdom. When he gets there, why he didn't be like, hey guys, Evnis, yeah, he's a bad guy. He's the one that's been like working with us. I don't really get that. But
does Camlin know? Because isn't it that
they
Braith
talk, yeah,
doesn't Braith do all the interactions with Evnis or no?
but Braith talks to him about it. Camlin's like, what about Evnis? And Braith is like, yeah, Evnis is going to get his for betraying them. Like when they were running out of the woods and Evnis like tried to kill them. Yeah, I looked it up because that's what I was confused about. But they actually have a conversation about Evnis.
Okay.
And so I didn't really understand that, but who knows? But I like Camlin as a character.
I was trying to remember because you asked me about it, and part of me was thinking that maybe Camlin sort of struggles with whose side he's on for a little bit towards the end. Like he's still in his internal thinking of, well, should I be here or should I just go off and be by myself? And maybe he hasn't quite committed at that point to being on the good side.
Yeah, but there is more to their storyline in the second book and third book.
Cool.
But yeah, I really like Camlin as a character, and he definitely grew on me even more as the series went on. And the same with what you were saying about Castell, it definitely does set up for Macquin being a POV character in the rest of the series. And I love Macquin. And then Philip, I really think you're gonna like him too.
You're gonna like him, Philip. You're gonna like him.
Yeah.
I already like him. He's just he's an enjoyable character for me. I would say the sort of second tier characters, he and Camlin were my favorites. I love the fact that Gwynne introduces that conflict in Camlin as well, because he's not clear on who he. I love your answer, Abby, too, to why doesn't he tell on Evnis at that point, because he's conflicted. And that's the best characters, the most compelling characters are conflicted in that way.
Yeah.
Definitely one of the more conflicted characters in Malice, I felt. And so I enjoyed his POV line a lot. So,
same.
And I definitely think I'm going to enjoy Macquin or Macon or however you
Am I going to like Macquin, Abby?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he's going to be your favorite character.
Unless he turns into a hobbit or a crow.
Yeah, I don't think he's going to be your favorite character, Alan, but I don't think you're going to dislike him.
Well, one character I want to see more of is who's the pirate king? Lycos, is that his name?
Oh, you're gonna see him a lot.
Don't worry, you'll get a lot of Lycos content.
Do what? Oh, more Lycos content? Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Also, Patrick and Abby, do we get Norse Viking stuff in The Faithful and the Fallen, or is that only in the next series that Gwynne is writing? Because I know that he does do some Norse stuff in his writing as well, but is it in The Faithful and the Fallen, or do we have to wait till we get to the next series for that?
Well, obviously I haven't read the next series, but in this series there isn't too much of Norse stuff, in my opinion. Okay. I don't see them. Definitely more Irish and Gaelic.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, we do have,
but in the next series, definitely Viking. The next series.
Okay. The next series is more Viking based. Okay. Cool.
Yeah, definitely.
The giant homeland is Jotunheim on the map. It's at the very north.
Yeah.
So that's I mean that's the only Norse thing that I could see.
Yeah.
that's straight up Norse. Yeah. Yeah.
I did sort of see the Islanders, so Lycos. I saw them more as Vikings because I imagine them on their ships, like going along other countries. I saw them as the Vikings.
Look, Lycos for me might as well be having a peg leg with a hook hand and a pirate. That's Lycos for me. He's a pirate in my mind.
Cool. So what else, spoiler wise, were you guys surprised at the ending, or we're on a bit of a cliffhanger in several respects? We don't know if Castell is alive or dead. My money is on dead, actually, which would be a bit of a shocker. But it seemed like he was kind of in trouble there at the end after his cousin, his rather ambitious, what's his name? Jail? Yeah.
What is that guy's problem?
I know.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Not
brave.
I don't think that Cywin is dead, despite what it is leading us to believe. I do not think that she is dead.
Now she landed on top of Connell, I think, right? Or they both fell, right? So what's going to happen with him? I mean, we get these two brothers. I think they're interesting characters because they're brothers.
Yeah.
I'm not clear if they're half brothers or if they're full brothers, but Connell and Hallian. What do you guys?
I like Hallian a lot.
Yeah, he's cool. But Connell's the hothead who ends up on the bad side. So do we have a future, duel here between brothers? Perhaps. I don't know. Feels like we could be headed there. But what do you think of those characters, Patrick and Abby?
I think they're great. I love the dynamic between the two of them too.
It's sad seeing them like part ways and end up on different sides.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really liked in the ending that it wasn't just like, I thought, because this is how it usually happens, I thought way more people were going to die at the end. And it was just going to be like, Corbin and, like a couple other people. Like Gar was set up, like Gar was definitely going to die. Like he was set up to die. The dad was definitely going to die. And then like they all escaped. Like Gar got away, his dad got away, right? Or is his dad or his mom?
No, Corbin's dad. Thanon is dead. He's
okay, but his mom got away. So his mom got away. Gar got away. Like the two wizards got away. Hallian got away. I like Evnis's son turned on him and is like, "Yeah, I hate you, Corbin, but my dad is a traitor. Like my loyalty to the king. Like, let's go." So I really like that as well. What's his name? It begins with a V. There's just so many names. I apologize. I'm usually better about him.
So yeah, with Evnis's son. What's his name, guys? Does anyone remember? Vaughn.
There you go.
Yeah, his deal is, I think, because he's in love with Bethan, who is Dath's sister.
That's right.
And she is killed in this. It's not clear how, but she's part of the one of the casualties in the hall. That's what snaps him, I think. And of course, he was headed in that direction anyway. He was kind of like among the bullies, kind of like Rafe's. Older than Rafe, so a little bit less obnoxious, but it seemed like he was a little bit nicer at times, and he was just trying to deal with the fact that his father's, a major villain. So he's interesting. And what else? Can we talk about Gar now and who he is? Because I have guesses that are based on, well, I think it's pretty clear at the end that Gar is originally from the same place as the Jahar. Like he's how do you say it? Jahari or whatever. He is also, it seems to me, he's somebody really important. Like he's somebody like maybe the former leader's son. Is that what's going on there at the end there when he has his duel with the Jahar guy who is the current leader, right? Does anyone remember his name?
I don't. I thought he was the former. I was assuming he was the former leader, not even the former leader's son. I just thought that he was going to be that he used to be in charge of the Jahari.
Anyway, not that important, but what the guy's name is. If you come across it, great. If not, don't worry. That whole culture there in this hidden city kind of thing that was going on. What is the city? Telesar. Yeah, Telesar. I mean, that to me was maybe one of the more totally original. Like with a lot of the other stuff, I kind of just felt like, oh, I see where this is coming from, and this is cool. This is a nod to whatever. With the Jahar, I thought were kind of, I'm not sure I understood where, if anything, maybe he just, Gwyn was just kind of like, let's do this, So Gar is definitely, tell me if I'm getting this wrong, he's definitely, I think it's clear by the end of the book, he is definitely from this Telesar city originally. And he's been sent out to find this chosen one and protect this chosen one, right? Is that kind of the deal?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sumer is the current leader. Sumer.
Oh yeah, Sumer. Thank you.
Yeah, Sumer. Yeah.
Now, is Gar actually? Does he actually really have an injury or not? Because there are points in there where Corbin's like, "You ran pretty well for a semi guy, right?" I mean, was he just faking it the whole time?
He says it comes and goes.
Just read and find out about this one.
Okay, you guys are, I can see Patrick and Abby are just like holding in all these spoilers.
So much has happened throughout the entire series.
Yeah.
So much has happened.
Okay, but just in terms of Malice, is he one of your favorite characters, Abby?
I don't know if he's a favorite, but I definitely like him as a character.
Okay.
Alan, did you really like Gar? Because I think I said I think you'll like him.
As far as okay, so I don't normally like the mentor character because again, I'm just like, ugh, really. But I actually liked Gar a lot in this one because I think it took me a while to realize that he was that mentor character. Like Gwen had me fooled for too long, and maybe I just wasn't paying close enough attention. But I was like, oh, this stable master is pretty cool. I like this guy. And then I'm like, wait a minute, you're the mentor who's hiding his power. Pretty sneaky, Gwen. So yeah, I liked Gar.
But he's a bit of an Obi-Wan Kenobi kind of character in that sense, right? Although the fighting style that he introduces to Corbin is a bit of a giveaway at certain points in the narrative, right? I mean, when Sumer sees Corbin fighting Rafe, which is a very satisfying scene, by the way, when he
that was so cool. So badass.
Him in a couple seconds. Sumer's like, what? He's thinking he's like, that's kind of a giveaway right there, isn't it? So
I hate Rafe. Hate him.
We all do.
Well, you're supposed to hate Rafe, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Can we feel sorry for him though? He's a bit of a I mean, he's the son of a guy who's kind of a douchebag, right?
A lot of a douchebag. I was when Thanon pounds Hellfack or whatever, like I was like, yes! Use your words, Thanon.
The power of words. The power of words. Boom!
I was so happy.
It's definitely like an analysis on how Rafe has been brought up by his father, who's not a great person. And so it's like the continuous cycle of that in someone's life.
Yeah.
If you're brought up by a bully, then you will turn into a bully, and then it just keeps going.
Yeah, so it's a cycle. So do we feel a little sorry for Rafe then?
No, I don't.
Like him.
He's going after the one guy. He's like who's the other kid? The kid that Storm saves. The one that he was like that Rafe was literally gonna kill.
Oh, the big guy, the Blacksmith's apprentice. Not Dak.
Yeah, the guy.
Farrell. Was it Farrell?
Yes, Farrell. Yeah.
Yeah, Farrell. Yeah. Like, isn't Farrell good with like an axe or something? He's like terrible at sword fighting or something.
He's big and strong.
Yeah, like leave him alone. Like that was where I was like, what? Because at that point, Rafe is literally he's bullying against his own self-interest. Like that's when he gets like his warrior status gets stripped. Like there's no reason. Like leave the kids alone, man. So any sympathy I had went out the window in that scene. I wish.
So his only motive really is that he's bullied by his father, right? I mean, that's kind of what happens, I guess, right? So cool. Any other spoilers we want to talk about?
We haven't talked about Rin, Duchess or Queen Rin, like who's the kind of like the mastermind over here in the West.
Yeah.
What is the game going over here? How does this relate to Nether, who is, in my prediction, the anti-Bright Star, the non-Saren Disclair. How is that related? Were her plans foiled like there at the end because didn't Evnus turn on her or something? I just, it's all kind of muddled, but like what's going on with her?
She's evil.
Yeah. That's it.
She is personally ambitious. She is working for the big baddie behind the scenes, the Satan figure, if you will. What's his name?
Asroth.
Yes, thank you. Asroth is Satan, essentially, which also leads me, Patrick, can you explain this? Because I think you raised this in a comment that you made on my review of Malice, and I thought it was such a great point you made. That Gwynne has taken some inspiration from Paradise Lost.
By John Milton. I would say that it's the Kadoshim. What is it? Kadoshim, the demon. It's Kadoshim, right? Yeah. The battle between the Ban Elim and the Kadoshim is highly inspired from that one, the good versus evil one. Yeah. I don't think I can say much yet on this one, but definitely inspired by Paradise Lost.
So Azeroth is in the mold of Satan in Paradise Lost, a kind of anti-hero kind of, which is a great. By the way, if you haven't read Paradise Lost, read it. It's actually one of the more fascinating stories from the 17th century. It's epic in scope, and it has inspired a lot of great writers, including Gwynne here. So, I mean, and again, it's a bit of a trope. You have good, evil, and that, you know, and you have a god, an absent god here, right?
Yeah.
The god figure is kind of like, yeah, okay, I'm tired of you guys. Good luck.
Yeah, you take care of yourself.
But cool. So anything else, you guys, in terms of spoilers or observations, or maybe final thoughts about why somebody should read this series?
Usually, when I recommend this series, because some readers can find Malice a bit too slow, and sometimes at the beginning, as Alan has said, a bit too tropey. And I usually recommend them to read until Valor, the second book. If by the end of the second book it still doesn't work, just give up the series. It's probably not for you. Yeah. That's usually what I recommend, usually.
Okay, good. Abby? I'm
very looking forward to hearing everyone's thoughts when we get to the next books.
Yeah, me too.
I'm looking forward to hearing how your perspectives have changed and developed as we've got to know the characters more. And yeah,
I appreciate how you and Patrick were keeping all the secrets really nicely.
We're kind of dying.
Philip, I think that people, because Game of Thrones is so incredibly popular, this is like, I've said before, like they always compare crap to Game of Thrones, publishers do. This is similar to that.
Yeah,
like
I said that too for this one.
Absolutely, but it's not, it's without all the like really slow like little thing here, plant a seed there. So it's a much faster paced, more raw and kind of rugged political machinations of Game of Thrones. Significantly less Tyrion going here and doing that and that and that. But it does have that feel with just like the politicking, and every book that's compared to Game of Thrones does not feel that way at all.
Oh my God, there's so many of them being compared to Game of Thrones. None of them ever felt like it.
No, this one does. This one feels like a brisker, more rugged kind of Game of Thrones.
I prefer Malice and Faithful the Fallen to Game of Thrones. It's a better Game of Thrones.
Yeah, like it's certainly a much, if you like Game of Thrones but you don't like its slower pace, especially there in book 2, Clash of Kings, this is a much faster kind of comparison, and I really liked that. Like I liked this a lot because of that.
Yeah, I definitely agree that this is much faster paced than Game of Thrones, which is, I love Game of Thrones, or I should say Song of Ice and Fire, which is the actual name of the series. But I didn't immediately think of the comparison because of the big difference in pace. And, you know, A Song of Ice and Fire is vast. It is something
it's massive
time getting into. For me, this series is so far definitely a much quicker. It took me, you know, a couple hundred pages to start feeling like I knew where I was and who the characters were and all that. But I get what you're saying about the intrigue and the violence of it, I guess, too, and all of that. So yeah, I would say it's a quicker version for sure of this kind of political type fantasy with the machinations and everything else going on. So yeah, good stuff. So anything else?
No.
All right, well, it has been a lot of fun talking with you guys about Malice, and I think I speak for Alan as well when I say I'm really looking forward to the next book. Valor, I think, is up next, and so looking forward to continuing our discussions of the books in The Faithful and The Fallen. So thank you guys so much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Happy reading to you all.